Good morning, everybody. I'm just feeling a little inspired to do another video. This is going to be kind of more for again, my friends and colleagues in the career and employment services field, but it'll apply to everybody and all professionals who are in the counseling field, or those of you who are into personal growth and things like that. But hopefully you've watched some of my videos before. My name is John Solano. I'm a family counselor right now for the last decade, but I've been a professional counselor for over 30 years, worn a lot of different hats. I started out my career as an employment counselor. Well, actually, I started as an addictions counselor, working with adult criminal offenders. And then I started to see that a lot of the defense mechanisms that addicts were using were, people use every day, and even in the area of employment. And when people are seeking employment or wanting to plan a career. So I bridged over into employment services, but always working with people who were experiencing chronic barriers to employment and career success. And so back in '93, I had designed an approach called the empowerment philosophy, and within that, what was called the integrity model. And even more specifically within that, I had isolated a dynamic that I call entitlement and indulgence. And it has to do with what the human response is to, I guess you could say, traumatic events. And so I wanted to do this video today, hopefully a quicker one. I know you guys know I don't think quick is in my vocabulary, but I'm going to try to give it a shot here. And just speak to 3 scenarios in which I'm hoping that you'll be able to see the presence of trauma, but also entitlement and indulgence. Okay? So it's important to understand, and this is so important to understand when you're working with people who have been traumatized, and this will take our discussion even farther, but what is trauma, basically? Let's just kind of speak to this quickly. Try this on for size as a definition. Trauma is an abrupt separation from our expectations. An abrupt separation from our expectations. So in other words, if something happens to me and I'm not expecting it, that's shocking, right? That is traumatizing. Now, from an attachment standpoint, some people might say, well, as human beings, we have needs, especially when we're small. And when people don't show up for us in the way that we expect, we feel traumatized. Now, to whatever the degree that those needs go unmet, so it could be cases, and will very well be cases of abuse, neglect, what have you, that are there. There's a certain trauma reaction, if you will, and I know this is a very complex body of knowledge, but that's why I'm just focusing on the entitlement aspects of it. But that's just to say, when somebody feels traumatized, you think about yourself. If somebody broke into your house, you would feel very violated, right? And if they took something incredibly precious, you would even feel more violated. Your first response to that would very likely be one of victimization. And, it would be a fear response. And so out of the fear response, you would become defensive. In other words, you would set up all sorts of barriers to make sure that doesn't happen again. Maybe putting cameras, but you do all sorts of things to make sure that doesn't happen again. All right? Now, after the smoke clears, all of a sudden, now you're thinking, that was a deep violation and I had something precious taken from me. Now you're mad about it. Right? So as far as I can tell, that when there's these trauma experiences in the mind, we first pretty much 100% of the time default into the victim narrative, but then sitting right under that, there's a revenge narrative. There's this kind of thing that we do as human beings. There's the healthy pursuit of justice, but then that pursuit in the hands of an immature, wounded person becomes street justice in the form of revenge. Now, I know what I'm saying right now, a lot of people can't even get their heads around these days. Mostly people are seeing the victim narrative, right? That's where we're stuck right now as a society. And I'm saying that if you want to help yourself or your clients move forward, we have to understand the full spectrum here. We have to understand the full dynamic or see deeper into the dynamic. Oftentimes, this revenge motive, one way to think about it is called, that it's in the shadow. It's kind of a passive aggressive thing. So, on the surface, you'll see the passive victim. Underneath, you see the aggression. And that is a very nasty dynamic. I mean, we're seeing it a lot right now, especially down south in the States. It's States always seems to be kind of taking the lead and dragging us through whatever we need to go through as a civilization in order to grow up. And right now, you see a lot of people who would be considered on the extreme left politically, who behind the victim narrative are just being really angry and mean and cruel, and they're on the attack. That's what that dynamic is. It can happen. It happens for individuals and it happens for groups. But here's the thing. Here's where you got to dig a little deeper, and that is this feeling of entitlement. Now, I've said this 1,000 times, and people still don't want to accept it. But in the core of the human psyche, there is this thing that I often will call the golden child. It's the immature golden child. The immature golden child, all of us as immature, we're called infantile. And the characteristics of being infantile are narcissistic, egocentric, and grandiose. Those are probably the three core facets of the very core of our psyche. That very core of our psyche, carries with it a significant sense and feeling of entitlement. So just by nature, we carry a deep sense of entitlement. We feel like people should treat us a certain way, right? I mean, it's kind of where, a lot of this psychology comes from. We have needs that we are entitled to have met, and when they're not met, of course, we feel hurt, but then we also go on the attack. But let me tell you, if you were entitled, deeply entitled to something, and it was taken from you, wouldn't you want it back? And tell me this, if as a child, something happened to you and you had to grow up quickly and you lost your childhood, in fact, robbed of your childhood, wouldn't you want it back? Wouldn't you be entitled to it? So a lot of times this is what the trauma dynamic looks like. It's like we're in survival mode, we're in that victim mode for a long time, and then the dust starts to clear, and all of a sudden, this sense of entitlement starts to rear its head. We're angry. We want back what was taken from us. But now, you might have a 13-year-old or a 20-year-old or a 40-year-old who feels like they were robbed of something when they were younger, excuse me, and now they want it back. And the odd thing about it, or the unfortunate thing for this individual, is just about the time that they want something back is about the time that they're being asked to step up into greater levels of contribution and responsibility in the world, i.e. employment, right? So whenever, 13, 14, and prior to that, of course, as little kids and people, we take on small jobs until eventually we're legally able to work. And maybe at 14 or 15, certainly 16, 17 and beyond, we're being asked to step up and pay for some of our own things and, make a contribution to society. However, if somebody has that trauma history, it's exactly at that point, oftentimes, where we see this exaggerated sense of entitlement start to show up. So what does that mean? Well, if you were robbed of your childhood, guess what you want back? You want back your childhood and everything that it was supposed to encompass. What is childhood supposed to be? Childhood's supposed to be a time of playing and having fun with very little accountability or responsibility. It's supposed to be a magical time, is it not? Food is in the refrigerator. I don't know how it gets there. My clothes are washed and folded and on my bed or put away in my drawers. I don't know. It's pretty miraculous. I throw a baseball through a window. It gets paid for and fixed. I don't know how that happened, but that's pretty cool, right? Moms and dads take me to here and there, and I do all this stuff, and it just happens for me. It's just magical time, right? It's a time when, I should be out throwing snowballs or having a, hot chocolate or making snow angels or, playing in the water fountain in the summer. I mean, this is that magical time that we're archetypally all supposed to have. So if I get robbed of that, guess what I feel entitled to when I hit 13, 14, 15, 16 and beyond? Playtime. Right? I feel like people should give me stuff without me doing any work. Why? Why do I feel entitled to that? Because did you see how hard I had to work earlier in life? I had to take care of myself. Or nobody cared about me, so I learned that I had to take care of myself. And that was what I call an untrue sacrifice. Like I had to give up my childhood. Or even deeper than that, I feel robbed of it. So as you can see, it's that dynamic. It's the fact that by nature we have a core kind of sense of entitlement that then gets magnified or inflamed by what we would call trauma experiences. And on the surface, you'll see the victim story, and then underneath, you'll see the revenge, and you'll see the entitlement, the feeling of entitlement, pick up momentum as the individual moves through life. And it'll look like the individual is not doing well in life. Well, why? Because if you're playing all the time, if you're see, this is the other piece of it is that, for instance, childhood is often a time of indulgence. Staying up late, eating cotton candy, till you puke, sleepovers and all sorts of stuff. It's play, 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 play. But we know as human beings is that we have to grow out of that, because if we keep doing that, we're not going to be able to contribute anything to society, and we're also not going to receive anything. And so we're eventually going to end up, broke and so many other things, and our poor health and poor mental health. To have any of that, good mental health and good physical health and a good job and good promotional opportunities, consistent promotional opportunities, that requires responsibility. But that is completely the opposite of what somebody would feel they were entitled to. They're entitled to no responsibility. And so all that play that's going on over there, is actually, again, a result of the feeling of entitlement, but it's also indulgent. It's a free will choice. This is somebody who's saying that I am completely entitled to this, and this is what I'm going to do, even if it kills me. So, that's what people do when they feel deeply hurt and deeply robbed of something. They say to themselves, I'm going to get this back for myself because I'm entitled to it, even if it kills me. It might be something they don't even want anymore, but they're still going to pursue it because it was taken from them. So these are actually patterns of indulgence that start to show up. So if somebody's not going to school, if somebody is smoking dope, if somebody's drinking too much, if somebody, just is what we would call being unmotivated or lazy, that's all indulgent. Indulgence implies free will choice. This is something there underneath that there is this deep-seated feeling of entitlement that very likely could come from a trauma experience. So let me tell you about 3 scenarios that just come to mind right now. And the last 2 are a little bit more challenging, but the first one was quite an eye-opener to me. It was back in probably the late 90s. It might have even been one of my first jobs in the employment services field. I was working for the Vancouver School Board, and they had a job search program that was composed, I believe, of some life skills. So I was a facilitator, and then I was also a job developer. And what that meant, of course, is that these young people, and these were all teens, young people who had some trauma in their history. And I remember there was this young lady she had been through foster care, and I don't know, she had aged out. I think she was probably 19 or 20. And so, yeah, this was a time when I hadn't been able to apply my empowerment philosophy and and integrity approach yet. It was, like I said, my first job in the employment services. And again, probably the last third of the program, as a job developer, I was helping these young people connect with employers in the community so they could, have a practicum. And for whatever reason, things were moving along for this young lady in the way that, or at the speed in which she thought they should. And so she ended up finding her own employer. She ended up facilitating her, her own practicum experience. And I remember she came to me one day and she was mad at me, because she felt that I hadn't put enough effort into helping her connect with an employer. And she went on to say, I'm so mad at you, what have you, I did it. I was able to do it. And I did it myself. And she was so mad that she had to do it herself. And she was so mad at me because I didn't do it for her. And I said to her, what the interesting question really is here is if you did it for yourself now, why didn't you do it earlier? Yeah, you see what I'm saying? If you could do this for yourself now, why didn't you do it earlier? See, this is the insidiousness of the entitlement dynamic. On the surface, it would look like, poor kid, right? She didn't have good role models, didn't get good support, foster care. She probably feel low self-esteem, all this kind of stuff. That's the victim narrative, that she lacks all these different qualities and capacities, and that's why she wasn't able to get employment earlier. See, that's the red herring. That's what you don't want to buy into. Now, it's a true level of hurt there, but what was going on underneath is something quite different. So that question, if you could do this for yourself now, why didn't you do it earlier, begins to shed light into her feeling of entitlement. She wanted somebody to take care of her. She wanted somebody to do all the work. She didn't want to expend the time and the energy and demonstrate the responsibility that it would have taken to do it. Well, why? If she really wanted employment that bad, she obviously had the capacity to do it because she ended up doing it. But, hold on, my dogs are barking crazy out there. So you see where I'm going with this? This is how it takes some awareness on the part of the counselor to go a little deeper into this. It wasn't that she lacked anything. That's the red herring. She was capable all along. What was more true is that she had her foot on the brake. She wasn't moving forward, not because she couldn't. It's because she felt entitled to have it done for her. Now, the unfortunate thing, see, when service providers don't understand that underlying dynamic, this is a young lady who I think the program was probably 12, 14 weeks long. She was probably getting a stipend or something like that while she was going through the program. So this cost the taxpayers a ton of money. This, was counselor time. This was, life skills facilitation. A lot of money went into this. This is just only a case of, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And here you go. You've got this employment program designed to provide all this facilitation and information and stipends and whatever bells and whistles were integrated into the program to try to get this young person to become successful. But nobody could see. See, it's not in the program. It's not built into the program, and it's not in the vision of the creators of the program, that they can see that she is actually got her foot on the brake on purpose. What's going on right now is not a lack of capacity. It's a sense of entitlement emanating out of the trauma experience, which we earlier defined is an abrupt separation from our expectation. Am I making myself clear? I hope you guys are really getting this, because this is, if you will, groundbreaking. Because if we can begin to integrate a trauma-informed empowerment approach like an integrity model into the program, we get results way faster. See, it's not a matter of time. It's like, okay, 14 weeks in a life skills program. What if I told you I could get the same result in half that time? Because it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of depth. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask some questions and design programs, design some workshops that will facilitate awareness into the trauma, into the victim stuff, and into the entitlement stuff. And then I'm going to connect the person with a sense of who they really are under that. That's where we were going back in the 2000s with the Baristas Youth Skills Link program. That was the idea. You can lead a horse to water, right? But they're not going to drink. Somebody says they want to get from point A to point B, you got to take your foot off the brake. The question is, why is your foot on the brake? The question is, why is the horse isn't drinking? And if you can't see that there's a free will choice being made as a manifestation of a sense of entitlement, then what people do is that they pour all sorts of resources and services on it. Like I said, the horse isn't drinking, so let's change the flavor of the water. Or we want to get our results faster, so let's put in a clothing allowance, and let's put in a completion bonus, and let's put in all these certificates, unless oh man, I'll tell you, it is the red herring, folks. When I was supervising the Baristas Youth Skills Link program, our most successful group was our very first group. And what was our very first group? That was a bare bones program. We had 10 very, like most programs, we got our contract, approved right at the last second. So we had to put butts in the seats real fast. We weren't cherry picking at all, in this group. And they're a very tough group. And the only benefit they had in being with the program, of course, the practicum was Starbucks, but they were getting a minimum wage stipend for being in the program. And you know what? 10 out of 10 of those young people completed the program. 100% successful completion rate after 16 weeks. 7 out of 10 of those youth were hired by Starbucks. The stats were amazing. And we got all these results way before the deadline, the contractual deadline. And as the groups went on, however, the results started to become less and less. And that's because I went from supervising 1 program to 3 programs. So if you're a supervisor out there, you know how frustrating that can be when you really want to spend more time in the trenches and you can't because you're supervising other programs and on the road quite a bit. Well, that pulled me out of the classroom. So what we began to see are fewer and fewer, youth completing the program. But the typical management response to that was to add bells and whistles. So they started to put in WMIS and superhosts and did a clothing allowance and a completion bonus. And it ended up costing the taxpayer thousands more than it should have. And the graduation rates dropped, and the retention rates dropped, and the employment rates dropped. All because the empowerment philosophy, the focus on this underlying entitlement dynamic, had been reduced. So that's the way it works. You start to see deeper into this stuff, and your results start to come a lot faster. So I'm aware of the time here. I certainly didn't keep it short and sweet, But I hope this was informative. I've got 2 more scenarios that I may speak to here in just a minute, and that'll be in part 2. So thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the upcoming scenarios that I'll describe, because those will really get into more of a complex trauma. All right, take care.